Hi, welcome to Mr. B's Brain Dump, and today my first video on maintenance is going to be about changing the chain and sprockets on a Suzuki Hayabusa, in this case 1999 model, okay, which is a K1. So first of all we need to go through the tools that you're going to need. Now I've gone through the pain of finding all the right tools to start with, so I'm filming this at the end of the job so that you guys have got all the tools before you start, and trust me, it's a real time saver when you've got the right tools. So I'm just going to run through them now. So starting off with, we've got a drill here, and you'll see why when we get to use it, and it's just a handheld electric drill with a 4 hex screw end in it, and that's for getting the fairing off basically. And you'll see why we use that instead of an Allen key when we get to it. Next after that, we've got a Phillips head screwdriver. You need that for taking off the water expansion tank. You also need 10mm ratchet screwdriver if you got one. If not, just a normal ring end 10mm. Use that to get off the gear linking. Also you're going to need an 8mm long nose socket, which you use to take off the housing that goes around the front sprocket where your clutch push rod is. So you'll be needing that one. You'll want a 6 hex end. That takes off the cover plate from the front sprocket, so you can get to the main sprocket nut. And along with that and the sprocket, you'll be needing something like this, a breaker bar. I suggest you really get one of these. I'll go into more detail when we get to that point, but a breaker bar is really what you want for that job. After the breaker bar, you're going to need a 32mm socket, and we use that to take off the main sprocket nut. You're also then going to need, of course, chain braking tool. Okay, and I'll go and I'll show you that in some detail. There are other videos on YouTube that go into detail about breaking a chain, but I've done a little bit just so you get the idea. If you want to see more detail, there are other videos out there. Time's permitting, I didn't have time to go right into detail with it, but you'll get to see it in action. Okay, taking off of the rear caliper, you're going to need some 14 and 12mm ring end spanners, and a 14mm socket as well, because it's double-ended on the rod that holds your caliper. Okay, so you'll need two 14mm on that. Okay, so for the rear wheel itself, I use the actual tool from the toolkit on the Hayabusa, and that's to take off the rear axle bolt. Okay. Also you're going to need, if you're doing the cush drive job and changing the reel bearing, then you want a 32mm socket, and what I use that for, along with a hammer, you get it inside your cush drive and use it to knock out nice and flush your wheel bearing. Okay. Something else that you're going to need, not you'd expect to need as a tool, but some bungees. Probably about 3 or 4 to be on the safe side. And what we use these for is to hold up anything that needs to drop down, such as the clutch cover plate, where you've got your clutch pipe, your hydraulic clutch brake line. Okay, you don't want to stretch that, and the same goes for the brake pipe on the rear caliper and also the water bottle. So get these on there, hang them up, stops them being stretched. That's what we use these babies for. Okay, obviously you're going to need a chain and sprocket set. Okay, that's the one I used. There's a rear sprocket. You'll see why this one I've not actually used, because I actually went and forked out on a little bit more for a slightly nicer rear sprocket than this one. So this is a handy spare. And then of course we'll be wanting some lube, chain cleaner, chain lube. So when we finish, we lube the chain back up. WD-40 just to make sure that we don't get any difficult bolts, and if we do, you spray it on, wind it in, wind it out, spray it on, and so you don't end up stripping any threads. And I also use this adjustable spanner because I didn't have a 27mm spanner, which is what you use as part of your chain breaker tool. Okay, to hold that still. 19mm goes on the other end, and that's what we use to break the chain and also to push the rivets back on in the plate. Okay. One other thing you need, of course, as well is that when you're taking all this stuff, it's going to need lubing up before it goes back on, and the rear axle is going to need some copper grease. Okay, so make sure you got that. Splash it all over your axle before you put it back in the bike. Brilliant. Oh, one other thing, of course, you're going to need right at the very beginning of the job is some paddock stands. And so you want a rear one and a front paddock stand, and that's what we use to lift the bike up, so it's nice and solid to work on. And that concludes all of the tools. Now what I'll also do is, I've gone through them now here on the video, but I'll also put them on the description in the video text that goes down there just below where I'm pointing, I think, and I'll list them out there as well and what they're for. One thing I need to point out, of course, is that I'm just showing you how I would change a chain sprocket set on a Hayabusa. I'm not saying it's the right way, it's the way that I would do it, and that's why I call my videos How I Would. Okay, so if I'm doing something wrong, or if you know a better way, I'm quite happy for you to post some text down below, bring back some feedback. It'll be good because everyone will get to see it, and that means that everyone can learn a little bit more about what we're doing here. If I'm doing stuff that's you know, sucking eggs, grandma and all that stuff, then just fast forward it to the good bits, no worries. I'll put in some little tips here and there as I'm doing it, so you might want to feel like it's worth watching all the way through, but if you want to just fast forward, just do that. Yeah, everyone knows how to do that, so I don't go into too much detail on that anyway. Welcome to Mr. B's Brain Dump channel, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do chain and sprocket on the Hayabusa. So stay tuned, and we'll get this baby sorted with a nice set of running gear. Okay, I'm just going to put it on the paddock stand, but I just like to point out where I find the best place to locate it. Got a little pin here on the swinging arm that sticks out, and it's good to sort of get it behind that notch just there, and the same on the other side, which I'll show you. And also you want to be careful on the other side about the brake pipe. So we're on the other side, and obviously you've got your brake pipe here, okay, connected to your caliper, and what you want to do is make sure you don't end up pinching it. Okay, so make sure it's out the way, and then when you stand the bike up to get up on the paddock stand, you're not got to worry about cutting into or nipping your brake pipe, which isn't a very good idea. Again, get it up behind that pin there, it's a good place. Well, what I'm going to do now is obviously take the fairing off. I'm not going to show you how to do it all together, but I just wanted to point something out. You're probably wondering why I'm using this drill. The reason is that if you use an Allen key, then there is a potential to slip and scratch your plastic, and you really don't want to be doing that. And also this is quite quick and handy for getting them in and out, and if you've got a tension bar on it as well, you can't over tighten it when you put them back in. The one underneath is a bit tricky. I'll use an Allen key for that, but the rest I'll use this drill for, and you get the idea. You just put it into socket. Jobs are good. So the fairing's off, this side anyway, and we need to get in here, and then you'll find getting to the nuts is going to be tricky, so it's probably just as quick just to take this water bottle off and move it out of the way. A little handy tip for you if you've got some bungees, which are always handy to have. Save things dangling off the bike when you're changing stuff. Rather than let it drag and pull and stretch, just get a bungee, and there's a handy hole there. So when I take this off, I'm going to get the bungee in the hole, hook it up here, and then it's out of the way without it dangling. Handy tip for you. Got the water bottle out of the way there. You can see I decided to hang it off the hole for the screw there, off the top. That's out of the way now. It's not being stretched or pulled, and now we're going to get the gear lever off. These handy ratchet spanners are great for this sort of thing, and it just saves a lot of leg work, arm work, whatever you want to call it. Just going to scratch on the spline here, whereabouts I've got my gear lever selector, my linkage, so that basically when I put this back on, it'll be in the same place I normally like it, rather than having to readjust it again later. And that's it. Okay, so we've got the linkage off now. It's here. Don't need to worry about holding that up, it's not going to do anything. And I'm just going to use an 8mm long socket there to get into these bolts that are holding on the case in there. So all the bolts are out now. you'll probably find a tube that's on a little holder here. Just pop that off, just get out of the way there, put it that way, there we go, just pop that out of the way there, and then good old bungee again, and find a good place to grab it on. That'll do, mate. And then pull this off. Again, you don't want anything to be left hanging, so get the bungee on, just move it to one side a bit, bungee on, attach it somewhere that looks handy, that'll do it nicely there. And now we're just hanging it out of the way, again without anything getting stretched or pulled. One other thing, of course, as you'll notice, is that this probably hasn't ever been off before. It's full of what I can only determine as shite, oil, grime. I mean, it's like a thick grinding paste in there, and obviously when we do this we'll clean all that out, because it's basically like sandpaper and you just don't want it. Basically we'll get rid of it, and we'll use some chain cleaner. I'll get that straight off once we get all this off. One of the reasons I'm doing these changing sprockets today is because I've only recently got this bike. It's 13 years old, believe it or not, but it's done 16,000 miles, and one thing I noticed, here we've got a blue link. Okay, now it's pretty common for new bikes to ship with a blue link, and they call it the master link. It's the toughest link in the chain. It tells me a couple of things. Firstly, don't try and break this one in terms of getting the chain off, and also that this is the original chain, and this bike's done 16,000 miles. So the next bit then is to loosen this off, and then once I've done that I'll go and break the chain. I'm not going to take it right off yet, but I just wanted to point something out. This looks like a nut on the outside here. It's actually a cover plate, and you need to undo the Allen key in the centre, and it happens to be a 6mm hex. Okay, so we're at the point now where we need to take this off, and it's an Allen key, and as it's the factory chain, it'll be the factory tension bolt, which means it'll be a real swine to undo. Now, one of the things that you don't want to be doing, of course, is having it in gear. This is in neutral, as you can see, and so therefore don't try and put it in gear and try and use that as your leverage, because it's not good for the gearbox really. You might even end up turning the engine over. Or of course, it's probably not a good idea to stick metal rods, especially in the back wheel, to try and use that to lock it when you're trying to undo these nuts. If you've got no other way, then maybe a piece of wood. Again, don't advise it, wrap some rag around it. The best thing to do is get the tool for the job, and this tool is called a breaker bar. Now, a breaker bar is an awesome tool to have. Use it all the time for all sorts of things. It's brilliant, car nuts, you name it. And essentially what you've got is a great big leverage arm, and that's really what does the braking of the bolts. They call it braking, it breaks that glue, whatever you want to call it, araldite, whatever it is they put on the nuts. And the other good thing about it as well is that I can now use this bar to get this off on my own. Now you're probably thinking, wow, if I get that in there and do that, it's going to turn. How am I going to stop the back wheel turning? Well, you just stand up, walk around the bike, put your foot on the back brake, and then I'm just going to give myself a little bit more leverage down, foot on the back brake, and then you should hear the bolt brake when I get enough tension on it. And there we go. That is now undone. So foot off the brake and put it around again. You can use a ratchet with a pole on, but I don't recommend that because the ratchet's a certain length. For a reason, if you extend that, you might break your ratchet. So breaker bar is the way to go. So I'm just taking my foot off the back brake, on again, pull it round. There's still a lot of tension there, as you would expect. A real lot of tension actually, so I'm just going to stop there and just put a bit of WD-40 on it because it's quite tight and I don't like that. I don't want to strip anything. Okay, I'm just going to squirt a bit of WD-40 on it. I might work it back in and out again. And the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to strip the threads or anything on this, and it's got quite a bit of resistance there. I mean, obviously the breaker bar will keep going until it twists all the threads off if you want it to. Obviously I don't want to do that because I haven't got another one of these bolts for the sprockets. After a bit of WD-40, I'm just continuing to undo the bolt now. There's still a fair amount of resistance there, but nothing I'm concerned about. Obviously if it's factory fitted it's going to be quite tight and there'll be a bit of glue and stuff on it, but just working it round. Alright, and do it. Take this off now and use the ratchet for the last bit. Now it's nice and loose. Just hold the back wheel with my hand, get in a comfortable position. Turn it off. Hand loose. There we go. And there you can see the glue there that was on the nut. I'm guessing that's what the glue is, and that's what they put in there when they fit it at the factory. Yeah, that's the glue, and that's what you need to snap with a breaker bar. When you do that, it makes the nut a lot easier to come off. Alright, get a breaker bar, whatever you do. Time for the big baby. Again, breaker bar. Just love a breaker bar, as you might have guessed. Breaker, snapper, it depends what country, I don't know what you call them anywhere else, but that's what we call it over here. Don't put any extensions on a breaker bar, it's that length for a reason. Like ratchets really, you shouldn't need it anyway. These things are awesome. So again, onto your walk around the bike. Obviously if you've got someone with you, I mean my lovely Vicky's holding the camera so she can't press the brake. If you've got someone with you, of course, get them to hold the brake for you, save you doing this. But that's quite easy. Same as before though, foot off the brake when you go back. Wow. There's some resistance there. Nothing that a breaker bar won't handle though. Okay, that's nearly where I want it to be for a ratchet, but I'm not going to take it right off yet anyway because now it's time to break the chain. This is the chain breaking tool. The first thing you need to do of course is get it around the chain. To do that you just have to take the bottom piece off, so just an 8mm on this one. Loosen that off, take the little nut off, put down there a sec, you want a screwdriver, loosen that. A bit more. Sorry, darling.
I won't cut the stuff.
That should be loose now. Come on. It's kind of. Oh, yeah, bastard. Right. You filming that? Screwdriver does the job. Keep my little nut back. There we go. Okay, so make sure that your tool has got the pin there. And we just put this around the back of the chain. So I'm going to use here. It's kind of a good place to put it. Okay. Now when you put the tool back on, it goes into the A position on this tool. A is where the hole is, and B is where you use to tighten the chain back up. Just loosen that right off. In fact, I'll take it out just for a minute. Slide it back over, make sure you get over the right selector, in this case A, and then screw your pin back in. So the fingers are in the way, but basically, don't know if you can get in there Vicky, but it's now over the A position there. Okay, and that's where the hole is at the back of the tool to make sure the pin pushes out. Okay, right, just get that screw back up. End of the tool back in. So always screw things backwards till you feel the click and then screw it forwards again, that way you know you've got it just right on the thread and you don't strip it. So I'm just going to screw this in now and get it over the pin. That way. Right in the middle of the pin. Perfect. Okay, so I'm just getting the pin over the pin of the chain. Just get that comfortably in the right place. Take your time over it, get it just right. There we go, that feels good to me. I've got the pin lined up nicely, and on this you need a 27mm socket. I'm using an adjustable, and a ring spanner 19mm for the pin bolt, which you just basically slowly turn in as I'm doing now. Okay, I prefer to use a ring spanner where possible on nuts because obviously you've got more contact points, and you basically slowly start winding this in. Just checking on it now. See, there's going to be quite a bit of attention while you're pushing the pin through. Once you break the top of the pin off, that gets a lot easier. Okay, it's now shaved the top of the pin off. It's getting easier to twist. Let me see where the pin's gone in.
Yes, got it.
Awesome. Great. So once you've shaved off the top of the pin, you just basically keep going. It's a lot easier to turn the spanner now. And I'm basically just slowly pushing the pin out the back. It sounds like it's just clicked off the first part of the chain. Alright, just switching over to a ratchet now. I'll be pinging off the ring spanner every 5 seconds. It gets a bit annoying after a while, so once you've got it through, like I say, it gets a lot easier, and that's why I'm using this ratchet now. I've actually got the pin coming out the back now. Always a good sign that you've done it right. I've screwed it right through, pushed the pin right out the back end, just undoing the tool now, and when I do you'll see the chain will break.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. I always have to screw it all the way back in again. I'm pretty confident I've got the pin out the back. Yeah, it's wobbling. Right, so that's the tool out. There we go. And that, my friends, is a broken chain. And now, as you notice, I didn't bother shearing off the ends. Everyone says that. You don't need to. Pin will probably last about 7 or 8 chains, something like that, before it might eventually go. But at the moment, there's nothing wrong with that pin. That's good for quite a few more chains yet to come. Okay, we'll get the old chain off. Right, well, that's the old chain off. There she is. And like I say, I'm pretty confident that was the original chain. Okay, it's really mucky and thick, almost like natural oil on it rather than synthetic. It's yuck. And also, of course, it means you get your hands dirty. Now, the way to get your hands quickly clean before you do anything else on the bike, bit of chain cleaner on a rag. Oh, look at that, it's like bloody magic. Get your hands clean, because obviously working on the bike you don't want to keep getting the bike dirty. There we go, that's better. And we'll get on and get the sprocket off. Okay, as you saw, just got the chain off. Just going to take off the last few twists of the thread on this. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to whack a bit of WD-40 on there so it helps ease it off. That's too much problem. It's quite loose anyway. I loosened it right off, so I'm just going to hold a spline. Don't worry, it's really loose. I'm not going to crack a crankcase or anything before anyone starts feeding in any comments about, oh, you crank. No worries at all. In fact, it's that loose, I don't even need the ratchet. There we go. And voila! One factory fitted sprocket. Lovely. What we're doing now is just going to take the caliper off before we take the back wheel off. I did try to cheat earlier and tried to leave the caliper on, it's not worth the effort. Take the caliper off before you take the back wheel off, and I'm just going to point out what you need to do for that. Okay, basically you need 14mm ring end, 14mm ratchet and socket, and 12mm ring end and a 12mm socket to go in your ratchet. Okay, and so your 12mm ring end, sorry, ratchet even, you want to use that on these two. Okay, you don't need a breaker bar for those, they're quite easy to get undone. You don't need nowhere near as much leverage, but you'll still get a snapping sound as you take those off. And then your ring end 14 behind, turn it around so it bends that way. Yeah, it makes it easier. Get that on there, ratchet on this end, and away you go. Okay, and you just undo those, and then what will happen is you'll be able to drop this bar down out the way, and these will be undone, so you'll be able to get the caliper. And again, as you saw, tie it up. I tied it up on the paddock stand so that it's not pulling on the brake pipe, because you don't want to stretch that. Okay, you don't want to end up doing a brake drop as well. And that's it. So we've got the axle nut off, and let's take out this adjuster spacer, and then knock the axle through. I'm just going to use the back of this. I haven't got a rubber mallet to hand at the minute, so it will do the same job. Just give me enough purchase on the other side now. Pull the axle bolt out. Okay, so it's sticking out quite far this side now, so I'm just going to take a bit of weight off the wheel with my one hand and pull the bolt out the other. Hopefully.
Lube?
No lube.
That's taking it through. Yeah.
Are you feeling?
Yeah. Not stopped.
Pardon?
I've not stopped.
Oh, okay.
Like that.
Right.
Right, come on, Mr. Big, let's get that classic 80s shot. Take your top off and let's see holes in the tyre.
Yeah, right. That's as good as it gets, I'm afraid.
Whoa.
Okay, so basically I've just taken the cush drive out of the wheel, and now at this point I've done a little bit more. As you can see, I've knocked this bearing out. Okay, they go in that way with the bearings that way around, and the way you get them in and out is using a socket. That's the way I do it anyway, and a hammer to knock it back in if I was going to put it back in. In this case, what I did, I turn it over, is I knocked it out using the same method. Now the reason why I've done that is because obviously I want to take this sprocket off, and you can see it has gone a little bit sharky, as I call it, where the splines start, or the teeth start getting a bit of a curve on them. It's quite subtle, but you'll see the difference if I get a new sprocket. Let's get here. So I just grabbed this new sprocket that came with my chain sprocket set. Just open it up. There's a new sprocket, nice and shiny for a start. But you'll see that the teeth are straight and there's no slight curvature. There's a slight curvature on these. Not massive. It's not a bad sprocket still, but obviously you don't want to put an old one on with a new chain. Now, you also see that it's marked 40 on this. 40 is the standard tooth for a rear sprocket on a Hayabusa. It's a factory setting. Now, I would normally take off these bolts, take off the sprocket, put the new one on. Pretty straightforward. However, I I'm going to cut this in with another video about changing the cush drive, because it just so happens that here's one I got brought in. Now, as you can see, once I've cleaned it up, it's got grease and stuff on it at the moment. It's actually gold chrome, so it's a little treat from a bike, and it's got a super sprockets on it as well. Now, the difference between that and a normal sprocket, this is a standard aluminium sprocket. The one that comes with a Busa is a steel sprocket normally, and the steel sprockets are heavier, last longer. Aluminium sprocket, lighter, doesn't last as long, but it's lighter. Not that it makes any difference on the Busa, it's so quick anyway. Super sprockets is like a hybrid. You've got an aluminium inner with a steel outer, and this means that you get the lightness in between the steel and the aluminium, but you get the steel sprocket, outer sprocket, which makes it last longer. And you would want it to last longer because super sprockets are a lot more expensive than the standard aluminium ones that you get. Anyway, what a nice treat for the bike, eh? And then if you're watching the other video, this is the new cush drive. That's the old one here. Nothing really wrong with it, but actually there is a bit of nasty shit on it that you couldn't polish out. It's around here somewhere. There. Don't know if you can see that. It's not formed properly. It almost looks like it's starting to crack or something.
Tilt it round a bit.
That way.
Yeah,
See,
I think that's
actually, you can see that and hear it. You can hear it or not, but that's actually imperfection of the metal there. Now, I don't know if it was like that originally. I doubt it. So I think it might have got a bit stressed at some point. Anyway, we're not putting it back on. We're putting this baby on. Okay, lovely. Right, so once you've attached your sprocket, it's already been done, but I think you can probably guess. You just redo the bolts, and then you just line it back up with your cush drive. I've put a new what have I put a new one?
Bearing?
Thank you, Dan. It's got a new wheel bearing in it. There's the old one. I've put a new one in there. I've kept the spacer and put that back on, and job's a good one. Wow, that's going to look pretty damn sexy. Now what I'm going to do is clean my hands and just clean that cush drive while it's easy to access, and then we'll be good to go for the next stage of putting the wheel back on with the chain. Okay, so I'm just pushing this right down nicely and snugly into the cush drive and the rubbers. That's better now. Okay, so now got a sprocket in, and I think you'll find that the gold cush drive does look rather nice. Okay, time to get the wheel back on. So some chain cleaner now on a rag. There's the axle. Let's clean that down a bit. Like so. Get any grit on it that might have picked up whilst it was on the floor, or wherever you put it. Okay. Okay. And some copper grease. Slather it on. Increasing out. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Spacer back on. Right, it's ready to go back on the bike. So I'm just going to lift the wheel up, and then if Vicky can slide that bolt in the hole. Higher or lower?
Higher.
Higher or lower? Oh,
perfect.
got it. Okay, give it a wiggle. Lovely, that'll do. Not too far. Okay. Okay, with Vicky's assistance, it's a bit of a fiddle on your own, so I basically lifted the wheel up and she pushed the axle through, and on this side I've put back on the bracket. I'm just going to knock this through now. your job. Okay, we're all good. Alright, so just obviously you can see that's come through now. You can see how I decided to take the caliper off. I'll edit that onto the front so that I can remind you to take the caliper off. It's a lot easier if you do. Okay. Right, so spacer on, chamfered end, thickest end always first, followed by your washer, and you know. Okay, obviously I'm not going to do it tight. I'll have to push these adjusters up as well, I'm guessing. We'll see when we get the new chain on. But anyway, that's the wheel back on where it needs to be, and we'll go now and get the chain on. Right, I'm just cleaning in here because it's full of oil, sticky, nasty, bits of stone, grit and all that sort of stuff, so we don't want that rubbing on our new chain, do we? We've just gone and bought a new one and gone to all this effort of changing it. So I'm just making sure that's nice and clean in there as it needs to be. That's looking a lot better. It's no longer a big lump of grinding paste grinding on our new chain. Right, time to put the new chain on, I think. Just going to put the new front sprocket on. So, hopefully in the cross shot. Just going to put a bit more copper grease on this.
Because as we always say, you can't have too much lube.
Hey! Awesome. There we go. Lovely. So, I'm on the sprocket. Is that washer, easy as that, a bolt. You can never have too much lube, just run some copper grease around in there as well. There. Okay. Okay, that'll do. Get the chain on and then we'll get all that tight. So let's get that chain on. New chain. There we go. When you get your chain out, first thing you'll notice is it's covered in this sort of waxy stuff. And we'll clean that off once we've got it on the bike, okay, with a chain cleaner. And then we'll lube it all up back again properly. Also, you should find in your little packet your two sealing washers there, what you want to call them. I call them sealing washers anyway. Yeah, your link that you push back on with your tool, and some special sealant grease that you put on the rings. Nice big dollop of that behind each ring before you squash it on. Alright, we'll do that now. Just finishing feeding this chain through. Oh, don't come off that sprocket. Come around a bit. There we go. Bit fiddly this.
Hold that.
Okay. Right, get the bottom on the sprocket and I'm going to run it round. Keeping under this top end. Like so. Okay, so in order to get the chain on properly, I just need to move my adjusters right up forwards. I'm just going to loosen that one, run it down, as you can. just loose that knocking nut and then screw that in. Do it some more so we've got plenty of slack. I'm just prepping this chain link now, so I'm just cutting this open and going to get lots of grease. Came with a chain kit, putting it on a cotton wool bud like so, and then I've got the rubber seals on there, as you can see. I'm just going to dollop them up now with grease and make sure there's a good amount in there. If you spin the cotton wool bud around, it kind of fills the holes and gets it all in there nice like that. Let's do the other one. Get down, more grease, load it up, lovely, and then roll it down and in. This one's fighting a little bit. Get some more grease on that. Some more. That's better. The rest of that in there. Lovely. Okay, good. Right, now with that loaded with grease, we go and push it into the back of the chain. Get your link, push it into the back, like so, and then get the other piece, get it up a little bit. Fiddly, I know. Come on. There we go. Okay, good to go. So they're packed with grease at the back. Now we do the same at the front. We put the seals on, pack that with grease, and then we're good to put the end plate on. I've packed this side now with grease as well, as you can see, and now it's just time to put the end cap on, the end plate, whatever you want to call it. Who cares about technical terms? Right, that's now in place, and now it's time for the chain tool. And what it does first is we'll squash the plate on. Once the plate's squashed on, you'll see the rivet sticking out. We adjust the tool, and then we round off the rivet heads and basically rivet it together using the tool. So let's do that now. There's 3 holes in there. I don't know if you can see because I can't see anything in this camera, but there's 3 holes. The one in the middle is where we pushed out the pin before. The other 2 handily sit on the rivets of the chain at the back so that it's located properly. So the first thing you do is just put this on the back of the chain. Simple, really. Go back over, round the back. Hear that sort of clicking then? I don't know if you can hear anything or not. But anyway, then we put the top piece back on and move it to the A position. Cross flush with the A position. Screw back in, just to make sure you're in the right place. On it. There we go. Alright. Next, you can get this little spacer tool, if you can see it. And what we're doing is we're pushing the plate on first, okay? So what you need to do is have it with that sort of double groove end that faces against the chain, okay, and that pushes the plate on, but it doesn't do the riveting. Obviously we're just pushing the plate on properly. Put that in there like so, and then tool that you push the pin out with, I think you can see that, you turn it round basically. That's the end that we push the pin out with, and that now pin then goes inside the tool. Job to good 'un. Screw it in. As soon as you get fairly tight, then it's time to make sure you're all lined up. That's when it gets too tight. Okay, there we go, that's about it. Okay, so I'm just going to check that we are sitting on the pins at the back. There we go. Right, good to go with the spanners. My 19 mil. Where's that? Should put it back away. Oh. Good old Vicky putting the tools back where they belong. I'm terrible for that. Right. On with the adjustable. There we go. I'm just going to push the plate on now. You'll be able to see the plate getting closer and closer to the chain. I know you probably can't see it on the camera because it's a bit hard to get in there, but and with Vicky getting her eyebrows done. Okay, it's starting to feel like I'm nearly there. There, I'm happy with that. Good stuff. Right. Time to undo. Undo and have a look at our handiwork. Oh, lovely. Okay, so that's that little spacer tool taken. I'm just going to have a little check. I'm happy with that. Yeah, that's on there nice and good. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. There, so you can see next to the tool now that the rivets are actually popped right out of the plate and the plate's up flush. So all we've got to do now is obviously the tool I'm on about. Let's see my finger. Where's my finger? See my finger. There we go. So there and there, those two. Okay, they're the ones, and the plate's now up flush. So it's the next stage, and another quick change to the tool. I've moved the chain tool to the B position. B position is to squash the rivets down. So you use your screw with your pin into the hole, and you'll see that at that end there's a kind of like a bowl shape, and that's the shape that it will squash the rivet into. I don't know if you can see that. I'll wiggle it around a bit. Right, so again, you don't need the other piece of the tool for this, by the way, the little spacer that you saw that we used to squash the plate on. You don't need it for this. So what we're doing, we'll just get it somewhere close to start. Locate the back rivets again. Okay, see that? You can see it's locked into place on the back two rivet plate now. And then just gently, I've got my thumb in the way, I don't know if you can see, but I'm just checking it's lining up now nicely with the rivet. Take your time getting this right. Okay, there's not a lot really you can get wrong if you get it nice and flush. Just check that, yeah, there, that looks good. Just check it this side. Yep. Okay, so we've located that nicely onto the rivet. Then it's some more spanner work. Okay, same as before. My big adjustable on there. Just tighten that up. I didn't have a 27mm spanner handy. Obviously, if you've got a 27mm ring end, use that. If you haven't, use a large adjustable spanner. Okay. 90mm on the other end, and we start tightening. Okay. Take your time with this stage. Okay. Don't be afraid to slacken off and check how we're going, which is what I'm going to do now. Let's have a look at that. That's quite good. We'll move on to the other one. Okay, just move the across to the next link now, and doing the same again. That's got it. You don't have to go too mad with this. You certainly don't want to overdo it because you might split the pin. I'll take this tool off now and then we'll have a look. I'm happy with that. Try and get you some light on it. Maybe zoom in, figure it out. I don't know if you can see. That's a good shot of my foot peg at the minute. There we go. So these are the there and there. Don't overdo it because you might split the rivet. You don't want to do that. Basically, when you get the tool in and it gets really stiff, you might hear a couple of clicks. That's enough. Don't go mad. Don't go getting a bar or something and trying to really get them down good. All you're trying to do is just squash the end a little bit, and that'll be enough to make sure that the plate doesn't come off. Okay. And if you get kind of close up, you can just see there's a tiny curve on the inside of both of these, which means it's mushroomed just enough, and it only needs to mushroom a little bit. So that's good. So we'll just adjust up the back wheel now, start getting ready to tighten everything back up. Lovely. I've adjusted up the back now pretty much where it needs to be. I haven't tightened up the back wheel yet, but it's in the right place for now. Time to do the sprocket up nice and tight. So same old trick on the socket, and I'm definitely on my own now because Vicky's getting her eyebrows done. Did I mention that? So you put your bar in, walk round the bike. I don't know if I mentioned, but I did put the caliper on as well, which helps when you're trying to use the brake. Just pump it. That's it. Now, time to get it tight. Same thing again, I'm just pressing the brake pedal. I could have used a ratchet for this bit. Couldn't I? Long-winded way of doing it. There we go. Some of you might use a torque wrench and everything else. So sometimes you just know. If you'd rather use a torque wrench, do. But I just know what's the right tension, and that'll be about there. Just when you start to feel the breaker bar starting to give about half an inch bend, that'll do. Right, that's the main sprocket nut on. Now we're on to the 6mm hex. Into your 6mm cover plate. Which goes over the top. Make sure you put the flipping screw in right. Okay, so it's like that. Slip it in. Ratchet on it. Just for this bit. Because it's quite a small tool that I was using, I've just got a downsizing tool for the breaker bar. And I can now fix to my socket around the back. Same again. Now it's just a case of putting everything back the way you took it off. I don't know if I'll bother filming that bit because you saw me take it all off. You will notice though that Vicky cleaned out all inside. I don't know if you can see that. Let's try and give you a bit of zoom. Yeah, if I get out there, right there, you can see that Vicky gave it a nice little clean in there. Not a birthday clean, but a clean nonetheless. All the stuff that would wear your chain out has all been removed. All that thick grease holding the grit is now gone. Right, I'm just going to put it all back on the way you saw me take it off. Obviously just reverse it. I'm not going to film that as well. Got the cover back on. Water bottle, expansion bottle, of course, and now it's time to put the linkage on. Remember, I marked it with a screwdriver, so I'm just going to locate that and push it back on. That way it's in the same place as before. Right, I've got everything pretty much tight. It's just now a case of getting the chain the right tension. Basically, if you can slap that easy at the top of that plastic when you're there, and that's too loose, just a bit more. There, lovely. You see that? If I give it a good shove, it'll slap on the top, like the bottom plastic runner. Okay, I'm happy with that, so I'm going to lock it off there. 12mm on the locking nut, 10mm on this one so it doesn't move. Lock that off. There, locked off. Make a note of the notches. I've got just on the four notches at the back there, so now I'll go around the other side, get that on the 4 notches. Done. Excellent. So we're nearly done now. Chain's on, I've tightened up the back wheel. We're all good to go really. The only thing I want to do now is just clean off the excess greasy wax. It's kind of a mixture of grease and wax that gets on the chain when it comes from new. And I'm going to wipe that off, get all that off using some chain cleaner, and then we're going to get some chain lube on there, and then it's job done. So easiest way really, get some chain cleaner on your ag, okay, and then pull it down and just quickly get that on there. See that starting to get all the muck and grime off. Gets the main part of it off, and then just give it some vertical wipes. Okay. Just do that all the way around the chain. That's the one that I riveted on. You can probably see now the little shovel, or whatever you want to call it. I'll think of a better word in a minute. But it's like a little bowl shape now. You don't go mad putting these in. Yeah, don't overdo it because you'll split them. As long as there's enough of a chamfer on there, then this plate's never going to come off. Okay. So there we go. And we just carry on doing that all the way around the chain. Last bit. Chain lube and a piece of card. I'll see why. Just give it a good shake. I'll be shaking it a little bit earlier. Right, put a bit of card there, like that. This is what I do anyway. Saves the chain lube going everywhere. And then you basically spray all your chain. Give it a good dousing. You can see that there. See why I put the card there. Okay. Looking good. All the way down. Lovely. Okay. And I'll put the card there basically just to stop it squirting all over the tyre and everything else, and that's great. Just a bit of access there dripping down the swinging arm. So we'll sort that out with just a quick rag and a wipe. There we go. Get that off, otherwise if you leave it on there it's all sticky and all the grit that gets flicked off the road or whatever just ends up sticking to your bike and making it look dirty. Right, job done. We're all done and dusted, so all I'm going to do now is just take it off the paddock stands and wrap up. So just to put the side stand down just in case. Take it off the front paddock stand first. Always keep an eye on the back end, make sure it's not doing anything naughty, like lifting up, because you don't want that to happen, do you? Okay. That's one off. At this stage, you can, I don't know what stand you've got on this one, you can loosen these off now. It's not going to go anywhere when you drop it down. Obviously make sure you've got the grab rail on, not the hump. Makes life a lot easier. I'm just going to gently ease it down, like so. Nice and gentle. Let it drop. There we go. Remove the paddock stand. That's off there. Loosen this end. Good to go, I think. Paddock stand out, and then just gently lie it back and pull it backwards as you do it, just to make sure it pulls onto the stand. There you go. Paddock stand down, and that is changing the chains and sprocket on a Hayabusa. We've done the Busa. It's got a nice new set of chain and sprockets on. It's also got that nice chrome gold cush drive that's going to really set it off. I've got some hangers that I'm going to put on. I'll do that in another video. And also we've got some, I think coming up, we've got how to change a fairing. It's dead easy. I think you can do it in about 2 minutes. And I think that pretty much covers it for this. So anyway, thanks for watching Mr. B's brain dump, chain and sprocket set change, stroke, cush drive. I think that really covers it. All I'm going to say now that the job's done is it's probably worth having a beer when you're finished, because it's a great feeling when the bike's looking good. Cheers.